burning and bombing that was done to us and the houses. Nobody never said too much about that, and nothing was done. But let something be burned, by a black man, and then, my God, You see, the flag is drenched with our blood. Because, you see, so many of our ancestors was killed because we have never accepted slavery. We had to live on it, but we've never wanted it. So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance to be young men, respected as a man, as we know this country was built on the black backs of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either, because we gonna tear it up. That's what they saying. And people ought to understand that. I don't see why they don't understand that. They know what they've done to us. All across this country, they know what they've done to us. This country is desperately sick, and man is on the critical list. I really don't know where we go from here.
The great Fannie Lou Hamer was born October 6, 1917 in Montgomery County, Mississippi. Born into poverty and oppression, she was the 20th and last child born to her parents. By the age of 6, she was helping her family pick cotton, and she also caught polio. And yes, I said pick cotton, even though at this current time when she was born, it was the 20th century. They lived in the Deep South. Fannie's parents were sharecroppers. It's important to do your history homework. There's a lot to unpack in it. And yeah, she came into the world with the triple exploitation on her back. The term triple exploitation was coined in the 1930s by activist and Communist Party member Louise Thompson Patterson. Triple exploitation described the intense oppression black women faced when it came to race, class, and gender. Fannie Lou Hamer's life experiences fueled her activism. In 1944, she married her husband Perry, and they worked on a Mississippi plantation together. In 1961, she received a hysterectomy by a white doctor without her consent. Forced sterilization, in this case, was used as a way to reduce the black population, and Hamer ended up adopting children since she couldn't have any because of the sterilization. I'm encouraging you to look up the history of sterilization and eugenics in the United States. In 1962, she began organizing with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, aka SNCC. One day, she organized 17 volunteers to register to vote at the courthouse. They were denied due to an unfair literacy test, and they were fined $100 for the bus being too yellow. She lost her job for attempting to vote. The owner also confiscated most of her and her husband's property and made her leave the property. She went to visit a friend and they shot into the home at least 15 times thinking she was there. In the next video, she talks about that experience.
I'm Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, and I farmed on the Marlowe plantation for 18 years. I had charge of keeping up with the time and paying off, and I went down the 31st of August to try to register. And after I had gotten back home, Mr. Marlowe told me that I would have to go down and withdraw my registration or leave because they wasn't ready for that in Mississippi. And I said, Mr. Marlowe, I'm trying to register for myself. So I had to leave that same night after I had gone down in August. And then I spent one night with Mrs. Tucker, and after about 2 days in September, they shot in the house 15 times, thinking that I was there.
In June 1963, Hamer and other black women were arrested for sitting in a whites-only bus station restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, after they successfully registered to vote. While at the jailhouse, the police had 2 prisoners beat the women. Hamer and the women were brutally beaten. Hamer was left with a blood clot in her eye, and she suffered from kidney and liver damage. When she was regaining consciousness, she overheard an officer say, "We could put them SOBs in big black and nobody would ever find them." basically saying we could throw them into a river and no one would ever find them. The FBI sent agents to investigate the situation. The FBI wanted interviews and photos from both the assaulters and the victims, and they were going to get it with or without consent, because that's just what the FBI does. But you know, Fannie Lou Hamer was a fighter. She let them interview her and take photos of her injuries. She explained that they took pictures of the front, but they didn't take any pictures of the back. Before the photos were taken, she secured her release from jail. They thought she was stupid and she was not playing around with them. She was extremely hostile during the process, paid them no respect, and the only reason she agreed because it was proof and documentation of her confrontation and fight with white supremacy. She exploited J. Edgar Hoover's obsession with documenting and watching black leaders. The U.S. government has engaged in the surveillance and harassment of black activists dating back to the creation of the FBI in 1908. Fannie Lou Hamer understood that the stakes were always high when talking to the FBI. She did it with her own agenda in mind. She repeatedly indicated that the FBI were a rotten bunch and would go far to discredit her. The FBI tracked her for years, documenting her family, job, and all the organizations she was in. They also focused on her association with alleged, quotation, black hate groups, such as Republic of New Africa, anti-Vietnam War organizations, and communist activists. In 1964, Hamer co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and they challenged the local Democratic Party's efforts to block black participation. In fact, on this night, President LBJ Lyndon B. Johnson had a press conference during the time when she was making her speech. He did that on purpose so she didn't get any airtime. But that didn't stop her, and it didn't stop the speech from reaching people. In 1968, Hamer was a member of the Mississippi Freedom Party's first integrated delegation. One of her most famous quotes from that speech is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where our lives be threatened daily because we want to live as decent human beings? Hamer helped organize Freedom Summer, and a year later, Fannie Lou, Victoria Gray, and Annie Devine became the first black women to stand in the U.S. Congress protesting the Mississippi election of 1964. She was busy around this time, traveling across the states, giving speeches, volunteering, and organizing. In 1971, she helped to found the National Women's Political Caucus. In 1968, she started a pig bank for black farmers. And then she launched the Freedom Farm Cooperative. She bought land that black people could own and farm on. With the assistance of donors, she purchased 640 acres and launched a coupe store, boutique, and sewing enterprises. She ensured that 200 units of low-income housing were built in Ruralville, and many of them still exist today. Fannie Lou Hamer was a champion. She should be talked about more. She should be in our history books. I should have learned about her in elementary school. But anyway, here we are. She was laid to rest at Freedom Farms Cooperative, which was the organization she helped build so that poor farmers could purchase their own pieces of land. Her headstone reads, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.